All right, in this video, we're going to work through this in-class problem, and what we want to do is to lay out this microwave oven type of GUI interface right here. Okay, so first thing is let's create a new class. It needs to extend application. We're going to need to import JavaFX application. It's going to have a start method. For the roots pane, I am going to use a border pane. And that means we are going to need to import stage, right? Import JavaFX border pane, I believe it is. And scene, we're going to need import javafx.scene.scene. Then we're going to create, after that we create the root component, then eventually we'll create a scene. Using that root component, and let's see, what is that on there? 600 by actually I have 500 and 300 on there. Let's go with that, and then set the scene with set the stage to show the scene, and title. All right, let's see if that will go. So something's not right. Yeah. It's scene.layout.border pane. All right, there we go. All right, so now we got to work our way towards this thing right here. So let's start with the label, right? We're going to need a label. Let's call it text. Just label's good. And that is going to be set in the center of the border pane. And we need to add that in there. Import javafx.scene.control.asterisk. All right, so far so good. All right, next up we are going to need a text field. Right, and that text field is going to be this text field that's up here, shows time cooking. Need to put that up here. Okay, and so what we want to do is put that text field, right, up in the top, I guess, is that's where we want to go. So with it. So what we're going to do is add a grid pane, right, over on this side over here to have all these buttons in there. And then, yeah, we want to put that, or at least that's how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put that text field up in the top part. So set root.set top text. All right, so you can see one thing is that this text field is huge. It goes all the way across the top, right? That's not really what we want to do. So what we need to do is to make it, not so big. So we can do that with setting the max width, right, to a certain value for that. So let's do that. So this text set max width is the name of the method. And let's go with 125 or something like that. All right, that looks good, right? But the thing is that it is all the way over on the left. We want it all the way over on the right, right? And so what we're going to have to do is to use the alignment there, right? And remember that is geometry import JavaFX dot geometry dot pause, and then to set the alignment over on the right, it would be let's see, where are we at here? It's border pane dot set alignment. And then it's what's the let's take a look at that. Actually, we want that for later. Center right. That's what we want. Okay. So it's pause dot center right. And we need to give it the name of the child first, right? So it's text pause center right. All right, so there we go. That's looking okay. All right, so next thing is we want to, going back over here and looking at our layout again. So it's looking a little bit closer, right, to what we want. So let's add now a grid pane over here into the right component. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is create a grid pane. And then I am going to add a bunch of buttons into that grid pane. Okay, so I'm going to create, since we have a lot of buttons to create, right, I am going to create an array of buttons. All right, so let's just take a look. So 0, let's see, did I start that off right? I did not. So actually, yeah, this is kind of messed up here. This should be, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the 0. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so yeah, the last row should be start, 0, stop. Okay, so and we're gonna have to have this import for grid pane, so let's go ahead and add that up there. And I forgot a semicolon. All right, and now what we need to do is to add all these buttons to the grid pane. So, so in order to do that, I am going to let's see. So just use a. I could just you know, just have however many buttons we've got, 12 buttons or whatever it is, and just add those in the right rows or columns. But let's just do it like this. So we have, looking at the things right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, right, and 3 columns. So row less than 4, row plus plus. then for the columns, we have 3 columns, right? So all right, and then down here we want to do grid dot add, and then one of the buttons, and then row. Oh, it's column first, man. I don't know why they did that, but I would much rather have the row first. But the column in which you want to add things goes first, and then the row goes next. So so now what we need to do is introduce another variable to keep track of what button we're on. So I'm going to add that up here. So int button number equals 0, because we're going to start with button 0 in the array. And so that's what we will add in there, button number. And then once we add a button, then we're going to increase the button number by 1. All right, let's compile that. Everything looks okay. And then let's run that. And that is not working. And the reason why it's not working, right, is because I never added the grid pane, right? The grid pane, I never added it to the border pane, so I'll need to do that. And let's do that down here. So we would do root.set right, and then grid. All right, that should at least get the grid into there. All right, and you can see, man, it looks great. That's exactly what we want. Okay. So no, it's not exactly what we want. Right? It doesn't really look good at all because of the buttons are irregular sized, right? And they just don't look good. It doesn't look like this thing right here, right? Where the buttons all have the same size and everything else like that. All right. So what we need to do is a couple of things, right? Number one is we need to let the buttons get larger, right? You can see they are not getting larger at all. So let's do that. We're going to allow it to increase in max size. So double dot max value, double dot min value. So that will at least allow the button to increase in size. All right, and so you can see what it looks like there. And the buttons did get bigger, right? You can see that that these 1 buttons, right, and these 3 buttons, they got bigger because of the fact that it was there with stop and start. Okay. So but since there's no button with a large amount of text inside here, right, you can see that these buttons here in the middle column, right, they are very small. They didn't get any larger. So even though they are capable, right, of getting larger, we saw that when we set the max value, these did grow, right, in here. They still really are not filling up this side over here like we want, right? We want the buttons to look like this, okay? So what we have to do in there is do what's called force some constraints, right, on the columns. Well, what we want is that the columns and rows to grow to expand the entire right panel of the bordered pane. Okay, and so the way to do that, if you look here under column constraints, right, you can see we can make these columns get larger, right, by creating these column constraint objects and setting the percent width and then adding them into the grid pane. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so let's start with the rows and see if we can do that. So with rows, it's called row constraints as well. So let's do that here. So we have four column or 4 rows. So let's try 25%, and then what we would do is grid.get row constraints. That's a method, and that'll get all the row constraints, and then we'll add all row 1, row 1, row 1, row 1. All right, let's try that and see if it works. All right, we have to have the import, and that import is, let's see, layouts. JavaFX.scene.layout.row constraint. And we might as well go ahead and add the one for the column as well. All right, and that's going to allow our columns to get larger. And rows. Constraints for this. With an S again here. All right. All right, so you can see that didn't work too well at all, although these things are now larger, right? The spaces in there are larger. It still didn't really quite do what we wanted it to do, right? We want these things to now expand this way as well, right? All right, so let's do the column constraints and see what we get. All right, for our column, let's set percent width. All right, and let's do 33, I guess, and see how it goes. And so it's grid dot get call constraints, or column. Dot add all, call one, and that's it. All right, so that expanded these nicely here. Let's see, why does it not like our... So that had the intended effect there, but something's not quite right. It's not filling out these all the way. So let's see. Let's take a look about the row constraints. Because that seems like it should have worked. And we're just kind of missing that one thing there. Let me see if I increase this, what effect it has. Nope. Ah, I see. Yeah, I see the problem. Right here, when I put double min value, this should be double max value. Right here. Okay, so that should do it. So let's go back to 50 or 25, and that should do it. All right, and there we go. All right, so we got our buttons to grow a little bit there as well. Okay. All right, and I think that does it on this one. Let's see, we got everything pretty much right set up the way it kind of looks there. All right, not perfect. These look a little bit out of stretch with this one, but that's good enough for now. Okay. So again, in this one, the new thing that we talked about that we didn't talk about before were these row constraints and column constraints that we had on the grid pane. That's not something we'll use a ton, but it's definitely worth knowing about if you want to use this to lay out your application. All right, that's it on this one.